So I'm a regular follower of the liberal news outlets Secular Talk and the Jimmy Dore Show, primarily because for me, they are about as far left as mainstream news pundits get, and are actually consistent with their own principles. And while they may be limited by the narrow-minded lens of liberal analysis, at least they're right on the issues that matter. That is, Medicare for all, ending U.S. imperialism, building up our infrastructure, free college, federal jobs guarantee, and so on. Not only are they correct policy-wise, they also aren't Democratic partisan hacks and know when to call politicians out on their bullshit. Even quote-unquote progressives such as Elizabeth Warren and Tulsi Gabbard, two politicians who, mind you, have revealed their hands as being the careerist snakes that they are. You have Gabbard, who on one hand claims to be anti-war, while on the other hand endorsing Joe Biden, a war criminal. And then you have Elizabeth Warren, who collaborated with CNN and acted in bad faith to smear Bernie Sanders, a known feminist for decades, as a sexist, among many other things, such as taking corporate PAC money when she claimed that she didn't, as well as backpedaling on Medicare for all. Needless to say, Dore, Kyle, and the progressive social democratic bubble that they and their fan bases occupy are able to diagnose the symptoms of capitalism, but they don't take this critique to its logical conclusion, that is, Marxism and communism. They want all of the benefits of socialism without any of the class struggle that comes with gaining said benefits. Be it because they are too spooked by CIA propaganda about actually existing socialism, their naivete to think that class struggle begins and ends at the ballot box, or just a general laziness when it comes to political organizing, left liberals in the United States are largely ineffective when it comes to implementing real social change. All one has to do is look at their neon god Bernie Sanders to see the hard limits of what left liberalism and electoral reform can achieve under capitalism. Now, those of you whom have been subs to me for a long enough time know that I personally am a fan of Bernie Sanders. He is arguably the least corrupt politician in the country and has an aura of authenticity about him, but even he has his limits. For one, he has no spine. He willingly buys into and validates the establishment's propaganda narratives rather than calling them out. He keeps referring to Joe Biden as his good friend. Bernie! You're in a political race for the most powerful seat in the country, and here you are going easy on this corrupt neoliberal. What are you doing, man? Guys, Biden is not that hard of a candidate to beat. For all his power and influence and establishment support, at the end of the day he is a senile old man that can barely find his way to the debate stage. Bernie needs to be aggressively railing him on his horrible track record, the fact that he was a segregationist in his early years, while at the same time Bernie marched with MLK and participated in the civil rights movement. He needs to be pointing out the fact that Stapler Lady, the CIA agent, dropped out simultaneously and endorsed Biden conveniently right before Super Tuesday, and then oligarch Bloomberg following up and dropping out himself right after endorsing Biden at the same time. So the establishment galvanized and propped up Biden's failing campaign. But once again, this is the secondary reason why Bernie lost. The primary reason is because he's a weak candidate. I get that Bernie is a nice old man, but politics is war, and we have to win. If Bernie really gives a damn about us, he shouldn't be afraid to step on some toes and play rough. Donald Trump doesn't abide by civility politics. Nobody took him seriously as a candidate, and look what happened. He broke all the rules, bodied literally every other Republican on the debate stage, and became president of the United States. And we need somebody with that kind of energy and aggression who is willing to fight for a left-wing agenda. And when Bernie doesn't call out or challenge the establishment coalescing behind Biden, or the obvious vote rigging, or the way that there frames the electability narrative prioritizing beating Donald Trump over all else, or his unwillingness to alienate and insult his political opposition, Bernie is doing a serious disservice to his constituents. He is doing a disservice to the very people that he claims to represent because, think about it, people. He's telling you that he isn't actually willing to challenge power. He's not actually willing to fight for you. And it is for this reason, above all else, that Bernie Sanders has failed as a representative of the people. I shall now pose a question to you, liberal viewer. If he is not willing to fight the way that he needs to fight in order to implement his agenda as a mere presidential candidate and senator of Vermont, what makes you think that he would do so as president of the United States? Think about it. Just think about that for one moment. Because it's pretty clear that if he doesn't challenge power in his presidential campaign, so too it logically follows that he won't challenge power as president of the United States. And the reason why I know this to be true is because he doesn't. Bernie Sanders, in spite of what I said in the past, is not a socialist. I know this now. He's a milquetoast social democrat who wants to implement parliamentary reforms to round out the sharper edges of capitalism, but he ultimately doesn't want to challenge the power structures that make this system what it is in the first place. He doesn't want to nationalize the banks or the industry and remove the profit motive from their function. He just wants to break them up so that when we have economic recessions and depressions, the fallout from big business failing won't hurt the common people as badly. He doesn't want to establish a socialist planned economy to directly tackle the climate crisis. Instead, he wants to grant tax subsidies and incentive programs for private business to build solar panels and electric cars. He doesn't want to liquidate the capitalist class, he just wants to tax them more and get them to quote-unquote pay their fair share. The facts that he doesn't actually want to break apart the structural forces of this system that make it what it is in the first place should be indicative to you that Bernie Sanders is not the solution to our problems. So that's the end of my Bernie rant. Now let's talk about progressives and social democrats for a moment. People, you're all going about this thing the wrong way. You're all too sucked up in the electoral politics to realize that the most meaningful reforms and changes that have occurred in this system have not been at the voting booths, but when people were out there agitating, organizing, rioting, protesting. That is to say, directly disrupting business as usual and engaging in class struggle. Let's take President Franklin D. Roosevelt, for example. What made a President FDR possible? Well, did you know that at the time of the Great Depression, the IWW and the Communist Party of the United States had membership numbering in the hundreds of thousands? Did you know that the working class was well organized and militant and were putting massive structural pressures on the system for reforms? They weren't just out there voting for senators or presidential candidates who may or may not write or pass or vote on a bill. No, they were militant, they were organized, and they were on the cusp of outright overthrowing capitalism during this period. Capital was backed into a corner. They had to make these concessions and reforms, and mind you, they fucking hated it. In 1937, our economy entered a minor recession titled FDR's Recession. Many capitalists entered a capital strike because they were sick and tired of the social democratic reforms and regulations. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because for you to get your free college, your Green New Deal, better wages, taxes on the wealthy, free education, and federal jobs guarantee, it is going to take an equal, if not greater degree of organization and class struggle to force the capitalists to capitulate to your demands. Now, I'm not advocating for any violence because that would be illegal. I am simply posing some questions. Are you willing to put yourself at risk of taking bullets and police batons to the face to make change happen? Are you ready to suffer, to struggle, to potentially face jail time, or even die for your cause? Even better, fuck dying for your cause. Are you willing to make the capitalists and their reactionary cohort die for theirs? In a video game. Because that's what it's going to take. And if the answer is no, then I guarantee you that what you have seen this year and in 2016 is just going to keep happening over and over again. You're going to keep voting for these milquetoast liberals every 2 to 4 years whom ultimately won't ever fight for you, who will talk a lot of good game about doing the right thing, but fundamentally are incapable of implementing the progressive policy and change that you desire. Historically, the ruling class, whom in this system are those who hold large swaths of capital, have never given up their wealth peacefully. Ever. It didn't happen in ancient Rome when the slaves under Spartacus were rebelling against their masters. It didn't happen when the French monarchy were telling their starving people to go eat cake, and it won't happen now when we are on the cusp of another Great Depression. So you better be ready to fight and to struggle for that better world because people, The ruling class are your biggest obstacle. And even if you are a total pacifist and you don't believe in any sort of violence at all, just to let you know, the ruling class unleashes violence and terror upon you on a daily basis. Every time they vote to invade a foreign country and steal its resources, every time they let somebody die of a preventable illness, every time they lay you off and leave you to destitution, every time they lock you up for smoking the wrong plants, every time that they pollute, that they destroy, and exploit you and everybody around you, they are unleashing a kind of violence upon you. So just know that any violence that you unleash upon them is justifiable retaliation. And one more thing, back to the matter of reforms. If you're in a position where the ruling class is forced to capitulate to your demands and give in to your concessions, then why stop with the concessions? Why ask for crumbs when you can take the whole loaf of bread? These people got rich by exploiting you. Strip these motherfuckers of their wealth and force them to join the ranks of the proletariat. Establish a new economic system that doesn't function on the exploitative profit motive, abolish private property, and let the people decide democratically what to do with the wealth and resources of this planet. That's it. That's all you have to do. Take the capital from the capitalists. Capital is the source of their power. Take that away from them, establish a new economic model that makes class society inert, and the world that you desire suddenly becomes possible. Get rid of the ruling class, and many things become possible. Just to let you liberals know, the USSR and the other socialist countries guaranteed everything that you desperately want to their people, from a constitutional right to a job, a constitutional right to healthcare, a constitutional right to education, efficient mass public transit, state subsidies for scientific innovation in the arts. Every policy that you want could easily be implemented under socialism. Or we can stick with capitalism, where even if you do get those reforms passed, right-wingers will just implement austerity measures and neuter and chip away and slowly destroy those things over the decades, as they have been across Europe. Social democracy was only possible during the Cold War because of a litany of factors that are no longer the case in this day and age, and rather than buy for a past that never was, we should fight for a future society that actually gives a damn about our humanity. And finally, I want to stress that this isn't me trying to alienate you. I'm trying to motivate you and give you pep talk to get more involved and be the change in the world that you want to see. It isn't going to come easy. But no matter how bad things get, no matter how much we suffer, no matter how many resources that they have or how much power or influence that they might have, no matter how many men in blue uniforms that they hire to protect them, we have something that no amount of money in the world can buy, and that is a just cause. They may have the system on their side, but our strength lies in our virtue, our justness, and the righteousness of our cause. And if there is one thing the common man can rally behind, it is a just cause. Anyways, thanks for listening. Capitalism.